Good evening, everyone. I'm going to get our general board meeting started. My name is Jonathan Landsman. I am our board chair. Welcome to the November general board meeting. First item on the agenda would be calling to order, then a pledge of allegiance. So let's do that. We'll rise for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda we would do is our roll call, if you would, Sheila.
Mr. Cowan?
Present.
Sorry. Mr. Furman?
Present.
Dr. Hans? Here. Mr. Landsman? Oh.
Here.
Miss May? Here. Miss Namie Dyer? She did notify me that she would not be present tonight. Miss Newman? Miss Root? Here. Mr. Torres? Also provided notification of his absence. Miss Woodruff? Here. Mr. Young?
Here.
Miss Root? We're good.
Okay,
My
thank you.
screen jumped on me, so did I not call somebody? We're having some technical difficulties right now, so just hold on.
So we give it a minute to get reconnected, or?
Yeah, we need to reshare.
Okay. You're just scooting out of the Teams meeting back in? Okay. As long as the recording's on and someone's still in the meeting, we're not going to lose. Okay, great. At this point, I need a motion to approve this evening's meeting agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there a second?
Support.
Thank you, Mr. Furman. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the agenda say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is public comment. Can we have public comment tonight?
We do have a public comment in the online chat. Mariah Harrison, she may be attending online. Mariah, are you online with us this evening?
Suzanne, she wrote in there that she'd like to speak during the second portion.
All right, so then at this time we don't have any other public comment online. So we'll just wait for that second opportunity for her to speak.
And there's no one in the audience tonight that would like to make public comment. Okay, there is a second opportunity, so we will use that later on. And we'll move into the next item, which is one of my favorites, which is the stories that inspire. So let's take a minute and welcome Isaac and the rest of you guys. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Chaka McDonald, Veterans Navigator. I want to introduce Mr. Isaac Cortez. Isaac Cortez has been with us 3 months now. Retired United States Marine, and Mr. Isaac Cortez is going to share with you his perspectives of being in our United States Marine Corps and what it means to transition back home.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Like Chaka said, my name is Isaac Cortez. I joined the OCHN team at the tail end of August, retired from the Marine Corps in March of 2020, and came on board with the team as the Veteran Peer Support Specialist. And today's story, I'm going to talk about stories that inspire hope, bring to everyone's attention that November is officially Military Families Month. And what I'll share about Military Family Month, a couple of important notes. Obviously, me being a veteran and with my family and the instances and the deployments and such that they have supported me through, would like to highlight their sacrifices and the things that they've been through in support of my career. So brief background about me. I wound up in this position, very unique. I left the military in March of 2020. I took about a year off because I stepped right into COVID and went into quarantine. And I was in quarantine with my then 3-year-old and 2-year-old daughters. So it was pretty intense. Leaving the military and transitioning was a radical adjustment for me, and also stepping into becoming embracing my role as a new father. So made it through COVID and quarantine, and then interviewed for a position which brought me to Michigan. So I retired in San Diego, and in less than a year's time moved to Denver, Colorado, and in less than 9 months' time accepted a position with Tesla and came here to Michigan to work with them. Stepped into the corporate world and was radically thrust into a 90-hour work week schedule, which was comparable to a military deployment situation. The reason that I share that with you is because, as all corporate jobs do from time to time, there were layoffs, and I was part of a layoff shortly after joining the company, and found myself in limbo, and eventually found my way to OCHN. Interviewed for the position, and could not be happier for the opportunity that arose. And the stars just aligned, and I wound up here as part of the Access team and the Veteran Navigator team, working with Chaka, Lori, and Tridina. And the reason that I share that background is because I'll get back to the military family. My daughters came into my life at a very critical point in my life and my career, and during a pretty intense transition. And the sacrifices that my then wife and my daughters made for my military service at the tail end of my career were very, very heavy. The burden and the load was heavy on home, and psychologically, mentally, spiritually, it impacted them quite significantly. And they are the backbone. The military family, when it comes to veterans, a lot of praise goes out to the veterans and what they do, and it takes nothing away from what they do. But in my opinion, and we just celebrated Veterans Day, every year when Veterans Day comes, that's my reminder to thank my family and thank them for the opportunity that they provided for me to do what I did during my time in the military. It's a very heavy burden, especially for children, to try and wrestle with the concept of daddy being gone for 6, 9, 12 months at a time. And my daughter, Celeste, was born in October, and about 3 months after her birth, I deployed on my last of 4 combat deployments. So I left my then wife home with a 3-month-old baby and went off to war again. And then coming back, and the adjustment that it takes to come back, especially with family members, is, for lack of better words, it's very intense. There's a lot of emotional trauma that happens during a combat deployment, and the military family really does absorb a lot of that. So my nod and my thanks always goes to my family for the support that they provided me and the opportunity that they provided for me to serve. Their sacrifice is something, again, and all military service members, their sacrifices are something that I feel I have to thank them for every single year. And Veterans Day is a soft reminder for me to do that. So, in summary, joining this team has really allowed me to take a step back and reassess the priorities in my life and step away from corporate and into a position where I am fulfilling a role that is much more fulfilling to me, mentally, spiritually, physically. And the work that I do in conjunction with Chaka is something that every day when I lay down and I go to bed at night, I count my blessings, and I am thankful for this opportunity to be part of this team, because I know that the work that we're doing is impacting the community, and it's impacting veterans who are truly in need of the services that are out there for them. And without the efforts of folks like Chaka, Lori, and Tridina, and the rest of the OCHN team, these veterans would be those opportunities would lack and be absent for them. So having a crystal clear point like a veteran navigator or a veteran peer support specialist to talk to about those opportunities is something that I'm very thankful to be a contributor to. So that is my story that inspires hope. And with that, I'll leave it open for any questions that the panel might have.
Board members? Yes.
Thank you for your service and also making the sacrifice for leaving the corporate world and joining OCHN. What is a day for a veteran support specialist look like?
That's a great question. I'm from a military background. I'm very used to very square edges and a very orderly approach to things. What I like to say with a smile is I consider us a jack of all trades and a master of none. We have to have the answers, or we have to have the knowledge to find the answers. And networking is a huge part of our day-to-day operation cycle. Honestly, I'm still in receive mode. I've only been part of this team for about 3 months. And every day, again, another blessing that I have is I lean on Chaka very, very heavily because he is the best mentor that someone could have. He is a man who's passionate about his job. And to answer your question, I lean on him for a lot of the answers that I need to seek for the veterans that I'm serving. So the day-to-day involves connecting with veterans through outreach programs that we've established or coordinated and scheduled. We go to community hospitals, community colleges, and we are out there in the field interacting with veterans, letting them know about the benefits and the opportunities that they have, and doing follow-up calls, follow-up emails, house calls even, in order to meet with them face-to-face and see them from A to Z so that they can get the answers that they need for the benefits that they're looking for. Typically, a lot of it is tied in with our partner, the VA. As veterans, they are directly, tied into the VA, and we have a lot of folks within our network that we work with in order to get them benefits for education, health, mental health, substance abuse recovery, and those things and the like. Of course.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm glad a Marine's on our team. I'm from a Marine family. My dad was in Korea. When you're in a Marine family, you learn two things very early in life. One is November 10th is the Marine Corps birthday. And number two, go our Navy, beat Army. I mean, that's drilled into your head from day one. But what can we do, not just as board members, but members of the community, all of us? What's the most important thing we can do for our veterans?
Thank you for your question. Yes, we just celebrated our 247th birthday. I like to say I look pretty good for 247. But to answer your question, I think I hear it a lot. Most of the people who know me, they know that I've served, especially the length of time that I've served. And the cliche go-to is thank you for your service.
Right.
And no veteran is going to be upset if you thank them for their service. But there's a lot of psychological trauma that comes, depending on what you did during your time in the military.
Right.
There's a lot of trauma emotionally that comes with that time served. I, for example, myself, have struggled with anxiety, social anxieties, PTSD, and sometimes it's a little overstimulating to be out in public and in large crowds and those types of things. To answer your question, sit down, talk to them, ask them to tell you a story about their time in. We have a hard time reconnecting with the civilian community after we leave the military. And it's because the military trains you and they change you and they change the way that you think. And you're uncivilianized, for lack of better words. So transitioning back into the public sector it's a very difficult transition. And we want to be part of that tribe again after our time in the military. And a lot of times, people will look at veterans and kind of shy away from us, and they don't want to approach us or be near us. We're kind of like zoo creatures, for lack of a better word, sometimes. So just, thank us for our service, and say, hey, tell me a little bit about your time while you were in. Sit down, have a cup of coffee, share those stories with each other. And the best thing that you could do to honor Veterans Day is sit down and talk to a veteran. Buy him a cup of coffee, or her a cup of coffee.
Well, if it's a Marine, it's something a little stronger, but we can't talk about that, yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. That's important. I know from my own experience, my dad, who was in significant combat in a tank corps, he'd never talk about the hard stuff, never, ever, his entire life to us. He would only talk about the funny things that happened and the friendships that he had. And for everybody, that's a different way to deal with it. For others, that's harder. So I think that's a very good point that you make, and just to talk and spend time.
And if it's too much for the veteran, they'll let you know.
Yeah.
They'll tell you, I'm really not comfortable talking about that, but thank you for asking, and let's change the topic to something like the New York Yankees instead.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Oh,
All right.
I'm a New Yorker, by the way.
Thank you.
Other board members? I have a question for you. So you're a transplant, so this is Michigan, and there's a little bit of a rivalry between Michigan State and University of Michigan. Okay. Now, there's also a little bit of a rivalry between Navy, go Navy, and Marines. But then there's the rivalry with, with the other service arms. When you're working in the field and you're working with veterans, how is that relationship like? I know it's one thing when you're working with someone that's Marine or Navy. How is it compared to working with someone who is Army or Air Force or Coast Guard?
That's a wonderful question, and I appreciate the opportunity to answer it. It's when you're a veteran, when you're in, we all give each other grief on all sides of the line. Navy, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard, it doesn't even National Guard, and it's all in good humor and good fun, honestly. And the reasons for that is because we have the privilege of living in a country that we have an entirely volunteer military service. Everyone who is in our military has volunteered for it. They weren't conscripted. There is the draft, which we haven't seen since Vietnam, thankfully. But when you volunteer for something, you know that you signed up for it. And there comes an added privilege with that. We look at each other and we thank each other for being the volunteers. And it's something that we're very proud of, and in good humor and good fun, we share that struggle with each other. Out in the community, it's the most wonderful thing every day for me to be able to wake up and know that I'm going to be helping veterans in some way, shape, or form. And it doesn't matter what uniform they wore, what period of time they served in, what conflict they served in. Korea, I've worked with veterans from Korea, even World War II. There's a few still out there. Vietnam, Desert Storm, Bosnia, and current Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to connect with a fellow brother or sister who is struggling and genuinely care about what they're trying to achieve and be an enabler to help them achieve it. So, again, I am a firm believer in faith and the stars aligning, and I'm in this position for a particular reason, and I'm really happy to be part of it.
And they're receptive.
Of course.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Of course.
Other board member questions or comments? Thank you so much. And yes, thank you for your service, but thank you for being a transplant from New York to San Diego to here, where you can help those of us in the Great Lakes states. So thank you. And welcome.
I'm looking forward to doing more great things with the team. Thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit tonight.
Hope you get used to our weather.
I'm trying.
And thank you, Shaka. Okay. Okay, so on to the next agenda item is the board member report. So, okay, so lots happened since my last report, the October general board meeting that I wasn't at. I want to thank John Paul, I guess, gave my report, so I want to thank you. So CMHA, we had a number of staff and board members that attended the CMHA Fall Conference. There were a number of interesting breakout sessions and speakers. To me, the most memorable were a couple of keynotes by Farrah Hanley, and who's the MDHHS Deputy Director for Medicaid, and our Honorable Senator Debbie Stabenow. But as well from our breakout sessions, I keep thinking about and I keep revisiting the MSP, the Michigan State Police pilot program they were talking about for behavioral threat assessment and management. And then last was that CMHA recognized one of our longtime board members, Dr. Steve Taub, in his 20 years of service, and also having been on their executive board and as the president of CMHA. I think at the time it wasn't CMHA, it was Maccabee, and he still calls it Maccabee to this day. As well, elections, as we saw last week, national, state, local elections, statewide propositions, and the countywide smart transportation proposal were all last week. I'm not going to dwell on the results, except to say that the SMART proposal did pass. I think that's a good thing for us. It's a good thing for the people we serve. That means more funding because there's more funding that's going to come across Oakland County, not just in select cities. So that's going to be good, but it's also going to mean that maybe we'll be able to start hammering on the transportation issue that's a challenge across our county. But I don't think the change is going to happen overnight, but it will give us an opportunity to work with the county and work with SMART to improve the services. A couple of the board members have already talked to me and said, oh, you know, we don't have to worry about the lame duck, but the lame duck session is going to happen, and especially with the change in the House and the Senate, I think that there still is the possibility there could be things that come out that could negatively impact OCHN, and more importantly, negatively impact the persons we serve. So please keep an ear out, keep an eye out, be ready to reach out to your state senators and reps, both incoming and outgoing, so that we don't have a lame duck that affects us. And then last tonight, during our regular business, we're going to take a few minutes and recognize Steve for his contribution here at Oakland. As you guys know, he, along with others, took me under their collective wing when I joined, when I came on board, to help me understand the special needs programs and populations here under Medicaid and to understand the evolving needs of people we serve. Steve's mentorship has helped me understand that our board members are appointed by the county commissioners. We are nonpartisan to serve the special needs of our populations across the county. In fact, most of you will notice that it's hard to tell who's a D or who's an R, and that's the way it should be. We are non-par, we operate non-par, and I think we work very well together no matter which side of the aisle we may vote. So I think our focus is always on the people we serve, and I hope that that continues to stay that way. And that we always continue to share what we do with other CMHs and PIHPs. And he's always said, let's share, don't build a moat, build a bridge. So I can't tell you how many times he's told me that. Anyhow, I just want to take a minute and recognize Steve and thank the Board of Commissioners, because if they hadn't appointed him 20 years ago, they hadn't appointed me 11 years ago, I wouldn't have met him. Shelley worked with a lot of you, so I just want to take a moment and thank everyone. So thanks. And that concludes my comments. All right. Is there a Policy Management Committee Chair report?
There is no report tonight.
Okay, thanks. Is there a Finance Committee Chair report tonight?
Yes, briefly, at the Committee of the Whole meeting last week, we handled 3 items which we're going to be working on next, and we recommended approval, or recommended passage by the full board on all 3 of these items. Budget Amendment 1, we did have a presentation from our finance director. That's been augmented by a list that's on your electronic agenda that covers both the revenue and expense items and breaks it down, as well as the additional added positions. And I welcome that that information. It kind of gives us a little bit more of a reference point, exactly what we're voting on for our Budget Amendment 1. And that's all I have to say with respect to the Finance Committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And yes, take a look at BA1 write-up. And again, just as Dennis has done, if you have questions when something comes out, or you have questions in general, feel free to send them in, send them to me, send them to Sheila, and send them to Dana, so that yes, we can send those out to the appropriate team that can address those questions and get that information back to the full board. So, thank you. And then the second page, you'll notice, had to do with the Comcast contract. That was a question, Dennis, that you also asked about what stations and that we might see those ads on.
I saw that, and thank you very much. A very colorful list.
Okay. All right, thank you. So that brings us up to item 4 on the agenda, which is board approval items. The first one is, let's see, BA number 1, so budget amendment number 1, that's for this fiscal year. I need I need a motion from someone to approve that BA1.
I'll move approval of the budget amendment 1.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Adam, for a second. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make one point. I had the opportunity to talk to Anya, our finance director. There was some discussion after the last meeting that, yes, in the budget we passed, we had a $1 an increase. This is an additional, what we're doing now is another $1 an hour increase. So we've gone from $14 to $16 in a period of, less of about a year. And that's necessary in order for us to compete in the marketplace, and for our providers to compete in the marketplace. So I just wanted to clarify that, that's a very large number, obviously, here in the budget amendment.
Yeah. Yes, Malkaya.
I had a question in the cow, and I just remember what it was about that budget, about the salary increase. Is that just for the people that were in the pilot program, or is that for everybody?
And I'm just coming up to give an answer. Cool.
Good evening, everybody. So just to make sure I have your question correct, the dollar increase that we are adding to Budget Amendment 1, your question is it just for those that are in the direct care wage pilot or all of the direct care staff? Is that correct? So the answer to that is no, it is not just the pilot. It is across the board. So the intent is to incrementally move the direct care professional wages up. So as Mr. Cowan mentioned and Jonathan mentioned, is that we have moved from starting in fiscal year 21, I believe, at $14 an hour. Fiscal year 22, we moved to $15 an hour. And now fiscal year 23, we will be at $16 an hour. And then incrementally or proportionally increase each of the supervisors and managers that also provide direct support in the location. Yep.
Thank you. That is awesome, because on my way here, I actually passed a fast food place that has a sign up, and they're at $15.15, and another one that's at $15.75. So we're actually paying people more, or we will be.
We will be, yes. That's the goal.
Great. Anything else? Yes? No? Okay. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Let's roll call. Right, Sheila? Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. May? Yes. Ms. Woodruff?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan? Mr. Cowan?
Yes.
There we go, sorry. Dr. Hans?
Yes.
Ms. Root? Yes. Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Lansman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The next item on the agenda is the Outfront Media contract. And again, I think that, the Financial Committee, you guys recommended that we pass this, right? Yes, that'd be passed, exactly. Okay, so I'm looking, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the, Outfront Media contract.
Motion to approve the upfront media contract?
Thank you, Mr. Furman. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Newman. Is there any discussion on this, motion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call when you're ready, Sheila.
Mr. Furman?
Yes.
Ms. May? Yes. Ms. Woodruff? Yes. Mr. Cowan?
Yes.
Dr. Hans? Yes. Ms. Root? Yes. Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Newman? Sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Lansman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Last item on this part of the agenda is the Comcast contract. And again, if I remember correctly, out of the Committee of the Whole, the Finance Committee did vote to move it forward and recommend it, correct? Yes. All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve, is there a motion for approval of this contract? Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Is there a second?
Support.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there any discussion? Okay, and a roll call vote. When you're ready.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Root? Yes. Dr. Hans? Yes. Mr. Cowan?
Yes.
Ms. Woodruff?
Yes.
Ms. May? Yes. Mr. Furman?
Yes.
Mr. Lansman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, item 5, is the consent agenda, covering board meeting notes, acceptance of meeting minute reports, and I'm looking for a motion and a second. No discussion. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, Ms. Newman. Is there a second?
I'll support.
Thank you, Ms. May. And a roll call vote for that, when you're ready.
Ms. May? Yes. Mr. Furman?
Yes.
Ms. Woodruff?
Yes.
Mr. Cowan?
Yes.
Dr. Hans?
Yes.
Ms. Root? Yes. Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Lansman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, so that completes the consent agenda. So we move on to other business. So we've got a couple things tonight on this. One is the PIHP contract. And our Chief Legal Officer, Ms. Ali, if you would please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kalana Ali, Chief Legal Officer for OCHN. Before you have in your packets is the Seventh Amendment to our PIHP contract. Primarily, this amendment focuses on extending the direct care wage 235 amount through fiscal year 2023, and it's also an update regarding any fraud, waste, and abuse and integrity requirements to align with the federal regulatory requirements of the CFR. There's also some requirement updates related to schedule for our reporting requirements under the agreement related to those provisions of the agreement, excuse me. That's pretty much it for that amendment. It's approximately value of about $5.1 million that adds to the contract.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this PIHP contract?
I make the motion to approve the PIHP contract.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? I actually have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So it sounded like this is the first time we actually got, usually these are unfounded contract amendments where they want us to do more and they don't give us a penny more. So that sort of seems unusual, where they're actually increasing what they're paying us.
So the direct care wage increase has been over the last 2 to 3 years now, since 2020. So maybe it just wasn't brought to the forefront in the amendments, but that is something that has been stable throughout. And as a result, it does increase the value because we're passing through those amounts to the provider network.
Okay, so it's not for FWA, additional work on FW, fraud, waste, and abuse, FWA, or for our reporting. It's for the direct care
Correct.
paying. Okay.
Those requirements are just legal requirements under the CFR for us for Medicaid
Okay.
reporting.
I got excited for a second, thinking they were
Sorry.
paying us to do more reporting. And the other question I had is the additional amount for pay. Is that tied into our budget amendment, or will we have to do another?
It's
It's already in there as part of what we approved? Okay. All right. Are there any other questions related to this motion? All right. How about a roll call vote?
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Root?
Yes.
Dr. Hans? Yes. Mr. Cullen?
Yes.
Ms. Woodruff?
Yes.
Ms. May?
Yes.
Mr. Furman?
Yes.
Mr. Landsman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The second item on our other business has to do with the Board of Commissioners meeting on Thursday evening of this week at 6 o'clock. And would you like to talk about that, Sheila, for us?
Yep, just a couple of notes, Suzanne and I would like to provide. On the agenda that a lot of the board members I think are planning to attend, I just want to note or let the board know that they are looking to also approve a new board member on that agenda, which I just bring it to your attention that that's also on the agenda, as well as Dr. Taub and Dana's update. And then we've been talking with the BOC for the last few days, but Suzanne's been talking, so I'll let her provide that update.
I don't know if anyone has had the opportunity to look at the BOC agenda online. Currently, it is not updated to reflect that Dr. Taub will be recognized, but they have informed me that they will be updating the agenda tomorrow. Then he will be recognized during the communication section of the Board of Commissioners meeting, which is in the beginning, so he'll be recognized prior to Dana presenting. So it'll be right in that order. And I believe the discussion regarding the new board member is a little bit later in the agenda.
That's pretty typical. So along with that, normally this would have been our board study session, and as an executive board last week, 2 weeks ago, we voted to cancel the study session so that board members from here could attend the Board of Commissioners meeting if you so choose. As well, we also canceled the executive board meeting that would have been at 5 o'clock on Thursday. So just to let you guys know as a board. So, yes, Malkaya? Oh, okay.
I was just going to point out that the communication section of the Board of Commissioners meeting is at the beginning. It's on the first page of an 18-page agenda. So we're very lucky. For those who can't stay, now is our executive director, is Dana, doing a report that Thursday?
Yeah.
That's later in the agenda, but yeah.
It'll be in the first section of regular business.
And reading the agenda, it's Dr. Yolanda Giles who they're nominating from one of the subcommittees. So perhaps our newest board member will be there and we'll have an opportunity to meet her. So
We'll see. Anyhow, board members, you're all welcome to go to that. It's at 6 o'clock. The smart move is to park on the south side of the complex by the auditorium and go in from there. Yes, Malkaya?
When study sessions are canceled, like it was canceled last month, and many of us attended the town hall meeting, were we still going to get a stipend for that?
I
Because
would
it was almost
think
felt
so.
like it was
I would think
required.
so because you were attending an official business meeting.
Anya says yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
But Thursday won't count.
I think Thursday will count. Then it should count.
And I'll account for the mileage. So if I can just get a list from Mr. Landsman of who all was present.
Okay.
So, and I apologize too, so I'll just note this now since we're on the topic, is I wasn't present at the 2 October meetings, so I'm making sure the smart sheet is updated now to make sure that, and the CMHA conference, to make sure that you guys are all getting followed up with that,
Okay.
those payments, so.
Okay. So, assuming you're coming to the board meeting, the Board of Commissioners meeting on Thursday, make sure I see you so I know that I saw you and I can send Sheila an email or a text with everyone that's there. All right?
And I would,
Yes, sir.
I would just add, I would recommend that each board member who's going to attend, look up who your commissioner is. It's easy to find on their website who it is, and I would encourage you, well, if you can come early, to try and meet them. They might be in caucus for a while, and they eventually get out, but I think it's important for us to build those relationships with the people who maybe were in their district. I think that would be great if we made the effort to meet them,
So
or any commissioner, quite
Right.
frankly.
And if you don't know who your commissioner is, if you voted in this last election, then you saw either your commissioner or the person that was running in that role.
Well,
But I hope you know who your commissioner is. I know there was a change of.
Well, my guess is going to be the new ones will be there that night, because there were some changed districts where folks were running against one another. There was no incumbent, so there'll be some new people too. So we'll have a chance to meet everybody.
So it's a good opportunity to bond and build bridges instead of moats, as Steve would say. All right. Anything else to cover on this other business item? All right, thank you, and I look forward to seeing as many of you as we can. All right, next on the agenda is item 7, and that's board reports, and the first one would be recipient rights. Dr. Owens?
Thank you. The Recipients' Rights Advisory Committee met on November 3rd at 4 p.m., and the meeting was called to order by Ms. Ristich. Some of the agenda items that were discussed first was Rights Office budget for fiscal 23. There is a 5% increase since the previous budget of fiscal 22. This is mostly due to compensation, development, and training purposes. Following this, fiscal 22 goals were reviewed. There were several recommendations from that review, and some of them are besides the ongoing support from the OCHN leadership. It is recommended that the board carefully review the periodic reports and recommendations from the Rights Office, and they also suggest that we consider our rights-related topics to be included in our study session. There was a lengthy discussion on the rights article that was published in Free Press several months ago, and the last item was the site review report for fiscal 22. This was 99% completed. The requirement is 100% compliance, but the data for the end of September was not available at the time of this report. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much. The next would be our Citizens Advisory Committee. I know Rena's not here. Is there a report that she filed? If not, then we'll go to Substance Use Oversight Board. Sarah, was there a meeting?
So I was just elected in the past general board meeting, and I am not aware of even when we meet yet.
Okay, it's quarterly instead of monthly?
Yeah, I just don't know what
Dennis was
date
on there
it is.
before. But,
Great.
okay, I just wasn't sure there was one, but I thought I would ask.
Thank you.
Well, welcome to that committee. And I appreciate everyone that serves either as a chair of a committee or on one of our, as a liaison to these different ones. It's one other way that people get to see us as board members, so thank you. Next on the agenda is the second opportunity for public comment. And I think you guys said there was someone that needed, or that someone was interested in making comments.
That is correct. We did have an online request for public comment, and requested the second opportunity to provide public comment. So, Mariah, are you online at this time to be able to provide your public comment? She requested to provide her own public comment. Welcome.
Hi. Okay, well, I'll start, and I realize that I have like 5 minutes. I'm going to try to keep it short, but my name is Mariah Milton Harrison. I'm a BCBA and the owner and director of Budding Behavior Therapy. We are an ABA clinic that's recently opened up to serve the Pontiac community. I'm a person born and raised in Pontiac, and most importantly, an autism parent of a 6-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. I applied to be an ABA provider with OCHN during the last open enrollment and was denied. However, I wasn't given a clear explanation of why. And I'm here to present my case in hopes that OCHN will reconsider my application to become an approved ABA provider. I want to present some statistics to surround my comment from the American Community Survey of 2020 and 2021. Roughly 70% of Pontiac residents are people of color, compared to 18% in all of Oakland County. The median income in Pontiac is about $35,000 compared to $87,000 in Oakland County, and 28% of Pontiac residents live at or below the poverty line compared to 9% in Oakland County. My late husband and I dreamed of opening this clinic because we wanted to serve families and children that look like ours, and our experience with the blessings and struggles that come with being autism parents allows us to provide a unique experience to families, so we felt no better place to serve than our own city of Pontiac. Parenting is one of the most amazing experiences you will ever have, but oftentimes there's a layer of added struggle when parenting an autistic child. And unfortunately, the experience of many Pontiac parents and caregivers are oftentimes complicated by the concerns around food insecurity, difficulty making rent, paying bills, working long hours, and inflexible work schedules. These experiences may lead caregivers to live a life in survival mode, which occurs when high levels of stress lead a person's body to operate in a constant state of fight or flight. And however, for many in Pontiac, the stresses of everyday life never really end. So now imagine all of these stressors and trying to take on the tremendous effort of getting services for your children. And everywhere that you reach out to has a wait list. I'm not entirely sure how the needed number of ABA providers is determined in Oakland County. Based on conversations with supports coordinators and parents, it's led me to believe that it may be determined by OCHN looking at the current wait list of their approved providers and adding more providers as needed. However, this may be flawed. Being in survival mode reduces a person's abilities to think about future events, and survival mode is specifically designed to allow a person to solely focus on the fires happening right now in everyday life. So parents and caregivers operating in survival mode may be less likely to even put their child on a wait list because it doesn't put out the fire happening right now in their lives. Instead, they opt to put their children in the care of family, schools, and daycares, meaning that these children of color are not even making it to a wait list, thus creating an illusion of a reduced need for ABA in the Pontiac area. However, if the number of approved providers is determined based on the total number of children diagnosed with OCHN, the process may also be flawed because it doesn't sufficiently take into the consideration the locations of the approved providers. And the bottom line is that there is not enough providers in close proximity to Pontiac. As stated before, the average income in Pontiac is roughly $35,000 compared to $87,000 in Oakland County. 37% of homes in Pontiac have one car or less compared to Oakland County's rate of 21%. And no, there's not a big difference between these two percentages. Which family do you think has the more reliable vehicle? Which family has more money available to fix that car if something were to go wrong? Whose job will allow more flexibility in getting their child back and forth to their appointments? And yes, there are some providers that offer in-home services, but most homes in Pontiac average between 900 to 1,100 square feet, which is about the size of an average 2-bedroom apartment. So families may not even have the space for ABA therapy in their home. OCHN has 2 approved ABA providers in and around the Pontiac community. The first is Hispanic Autism Services in downtown Pontiac, but they focus solely on the Hispanic community, leaving out other children of color. The second is Easter Seals Morgan Waterford, which is roughly 11 minutes away from downtown Pontiac. However, they have a wait list. The next closest are in Rochester and Clarkston, which admittedly may not be very far, but can be very far for someone who doesn't have reliable transportation or inflexible work hours. The children in our community who don't receive services or even delayed access to services will continue to struggle in all aspects of their lives. In August, I was awarded a single case agreement with OCHN for a 6-year-old boy who had been waiting on ABA for 3 years. It took us and his mother 2 months to get it approved. He only has 4 words, he's very aggressive, and he elopes whenever he gets the chance. And Mom has repeatedly said that she often wonders where he would be if he had been able to get ABA when he was 3. In June, I requested another single case agreement for a 7-year-old girl who has been waiting for ABA for 2 years, and we have been denied. When I last spoke to her grandmother, she's still waiting on services. Children who don't get services grow up to be unemployed in the prison system, severely dependent on others for care and never given the chance to live any sort of independent life. And this can be further complicated by the intersectionality of being a disabled person of color. I've already made connections with the Pontiac School District and local nonprofits that are looking for help for their students, but I am unable to answer their call. I'm requesting that OCHN reconsider my application to become an approved provider. My heart is in this field and helping the children of my community. Thank you.
Ryan, thank you for your public comment. We appreciate it, and for those others that are listening, we welcome public comment, either remotely or here in person during our board meetings. So thank you. Is there anyone else seeking public comment?
Could I just,
Yes.
Since I listened to the speaker, I would just say that if someone could contact and perhaps get an email. So she packed a lot in a short period of time, and obviously we're not in a position to make any kind of decision. It should be referred to the appropriate folks, but somebody should get back to her and let her know and have a response to her, as we typically do. Thank you.
Okay.
We do have her email from her submission online, and customer service will be responding to her. Thanks.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other, there's no other public comment? Okay. Next on the agenda, our item 9 is board member comments. Adam, do you want to start, if you have any?
Yes, I'd like to just thank Serviceman Cortez for his very inspiring story, and I thought it was important that he not only brought up the fact that servicemen appreciate when they're thanked for their service, but that their families are included as well, and I think that's important to remember. And also, I'd like to thank Steve for his service to the board. I heard a voice on my way in, but I didn't see where that was coming from. But Steve, thank you very much for your service, and good health to you. Thanks.
Sarah?
I think Adam said it best. I second Adam.
I concur with Adam's remarks, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone next week.
Dr. Hahn?
I have no comments. Thank you.
I would just like to kindly ask that we have a conversation in one of our board meetings, if we can, about the process of how agencies apply to be a provider, and just kind of give us like a snapshot of how that is. Because at the CMHA conference, I had like 1 or 2 different provider representatives approach me about their attempt to join. So yeah, I'm curious to have that conversation and just help us learn more about it.
Do you mind if I explain to you real quick? I'm still on here. Do you mind if I explain to you what I've been told?
We're past public
Okay.
comment,
All right.
but thank you.
Yep.
That's all. Thank you.
I would agree with Christy. I think that's helpful. You know, we heard in the town hall about the gaps, and I think those, even with budget surpluses at the county and feds and state, the gaps seem wider. You know, the transportation one helps a little bit, but that's still pebbles in the ocean. So we've got to figure out a way to expand while there are resources, because the needs got bigger during COVID, not smaller.
I just wanted to, give my condolences to, Yvette from the loss of her mom. And, other than that, I don't have any other comments, other than happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
All right, thank you. So Thursday during our study session, we would have been going over calendar and topics for the following year. So I know that's going to be on our committee of the whole next month to cover the calendar. So it would be a great time to bring up that that's a topic. Yes, Malkaya? Oh, okay. But that may be a good time to bring that up and find a way to talk about how do we find and onboard other providers, how that process works. So I think that's it for me. Yes, Malkaya?
We used to have a list of the various topics that needed to be covered, some with indication what period of the year those topics would fall under. I don't know what happened to that.
Sheila, go ahead.
Calendar year 2022 is onboardable. Right now, I'm providing you guys the list probably by Monday of the 2023 calendar year, not fiscal year, of the list, and then you guys usually fill in the gaps. Is that what you're referring to?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So right now, all we have is, since the study session was canceled, we have the required material that's either contracted or whatever that we need to have board approved, and then you guys fill in the gaps from there. So I will provide you guys with that list, which is going to be discussed at the COW meeting.
But I don't know, because when we're asked what topics do we want to discuss, I don't know about everybody else, but a lot of times I don't know what to ask.
So we have the, which can be reviewed any time, but usually when the board brings up, like, asking for more information, I add it to the agenda, and then we give you a presentation on it, kind of like the SED waiver. We gave you a presentation on it because you guys asked for more input. So when stuff like that comes up, I just note it and bring you guys the presentation. But when we review the agendas or we go down the calendar year for the agendas, that's when we seek the topics from you, just like the certain ones you requested before for the the practices and all those types of things. But we can adjust the agenda as needed, as we usually do, as you guys usually do. It's your agenda, so.
Can we have a list from last year's?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So it would help give people some idea of some of the things that were discussed already, especially since we have so many new faces at the table.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yep.
Would be helpful.
Yep, I'll provide the 2022 list and then give you the, just the required list for 2023, and then you guys usually fill in the agenda topics you guys want to more in depth on.
So Sheila, if it's not too difficult, could you look back at the last 2 years, identify the items, that were optional, and then asterisk anything that's a mandatory that we had to do?
Yep, I already have that highlighted, so that would be very easy to do.
It's easy? Okay.
Yep.
So, and then anything else is going to be if you have a question. Let's see if there's enough of those where we either have potpourri or we have, a solid, it's going to cover
and
a big
since
topic.
we're on that discussion, we have tasked our directors with a quarterly update on topics that sometimes you guys don't even seek to have. So, and it's a lot of work on our directors, and we're going to bring this up at the agenda planning, but since we're on the topic, and we do have to do a semi-annual report for the annual goals and objectives, and we do an annual report, which is in December. So you're getting the reports at least 2 to 3 times a year, and it tasks our directors with a lot of extra. But so we could focus in on the board's request for a more topic instead of the ones that we're already reviewing with you 2 times a year. I was going to seek the board's opinion on maybe foregoing those quarterly updates and going and seeking specific topics that you guys are wishing to, go after instead of doing that. So that is, I think, what you're referring to as well. So that is what I was going to ask your opinion on. So because if not, our directors, put a lot of time and effort into those reports, so, they would need to start preparing for January. So just something in consideration for the next cow.
Any other board member comments? If not, then I'll move us to adjournment. Good night.